I'm Shelanda, 35, and I believed I'd stomached all the favoritism my family could dish out until that explosive family dinner. In our Los Angeles backyard, amid 20 relatives bathed in the glow of string lights, the lively banter shattered when my mom rose abruptly, her tone like a whip cracking. "We gave birth to you out of duty," she bellowed, pinning me with a glare that screamed resentment. "You were born to fulfill your duty, we never needed you." The sting was immediate raw. My sister's smirk deepened the wound, a silent victory lap. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone froze, eyes darting to me in awkward pity. Rage boiled inside, but I locked it down. No scene, no breakdown. This was my line in the sand. I'd poured years of sweat, skills, and cash into their faltering diner, propping it up invisibly, while they sidelined me like yesterday's news. That night, a switch flipped. Enough. I shoved my chair back with a grating screech, snatched my purse, and strode into the cooling LA evening, every step sharpening my plan. Just one day later, I flipped their cruel wish into a brutal truth they couldn't ignore, unraveling their polished world piece by piece. Picture yourself in that moment. What would you do if your family unloaded something that brutal on you? Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell me your country. I'm curious how this tale resonates worldwide. Growing up in our suburban Los Angeles home, I was always the shadow lingering behind my sister Sheng's spotlight. My parents, Jamal and Tasha, made sure of that from the start. They'd light up whenever Sheng brought home her report cards filled with A's or her soccer medals from school leagues, praising her endlessly for her drive and charisma. Me, I'd scrape by with solid grades in math and science classes, but if I mentioned a good test score at dinner, Mom would wave it off with a quick, "That's nice," before turning back to Sheng's latest story about leading her team to victory. One memory sticks out from when I was about 10. I'd won first place in a school science fair with a project on solar energy that I'd built from scratch, using old parts from Dad's garage. I was buzzing with excitement, imagining them showing up to the award ceremony at the community center in our neighborhood. But they forgot too, caught up in Sheng's dance recital across town, where she nailed the lead role. When I got home with my ribbon, Dad glanced at it and muttered something about being proud, but then he dialed Sheng to hear all about her performance. His voice animated as he laughed at her recap. Sheng lapped it up, giving me that knowing nod like she was the star and I was just the extra. Family meals turned into Sheng's solo acts too. We'd sit around the kitchen table in our modest house, the smell of Mom's home-cooked tacos filling the air, and the conversation would inevitably shift to her. "Tell us about your day at school," Dad would say, his eyes fixed on Sheng as she spun tales of her friends, her clubs, or her plans for the weekend. If I tried to chime in about my coding club experiments or a book I'd read, Mom would interrupt gently but firmly. "Hold on, let's finish hearing from your sister first." I'd bite my tongue, pushing down the knot in my stomach, learning early that speaking up only led to more silence on my end. It wasn't just the words. They'd buy Sheng new outfits for her events or drive her to extra practices, while my requests for supplies or rides got met with excuses about time and money being tight. Even at extended family gatherings in local LA parks, like barbecues under the palm trees, with cousins running around, the pattern held. Aunts and uncles would cluster around my parents, listening as Jamal boasted about Sheng's latest achievement, maybe her spot on the debate team or her volunteer work at the community shelter. "She's got such a bright future." Tashia would beam, pulling Sheng in for a hug while I stood off to the side, helping set up the picnic tables or playing with the younger kids. No one asked about me, and if they did, my parents would pivot right back to Sheng, like I was an afterthought they hadn't prepared for. Once, at a cousin's birthday party in Griffith Park, they spent the entire afternoon raving about Sheng's summer internship at a local marketing firm, completely overlooking that I'd just started my first part-time job tutoring kids in computer basics. The dismissal burned, but I swallowed it, convincing myself that keeping the peace mattered more. Those years shaped me in ways I didn't fully grasp then. I'd lie awake in my shared bedroom staring at the ceiling fan whirring above, wondering why my efforts never measured up. Sheng wasn't blameless. She'd lean into the praise, sometimes tossing me a pitying glance, as if I should be grateful for the scraps. Like the time she joked at a family holiday dinner that I was the backup plan kid, and Mom chuckled, while Dad stayed quiet, not correcting her. I kept trying, holding on to that stubborn hope they'd notice me one day, but the favoritism seeped into everything from holiday gifts to daily attention. It taught me to fade into the background, but deep down the hurt built like pressure in a fault line waiting for the right quake to split it open. Their family diner in the heart of Los Angeles was their supposed pride, but it teetered on the edge, constantly bad management choices mounting bills from suppliers and inconsistent customer flow that left the registers light most days. Dad and Mom had opened it years ago, selling burgers, fries, and shakes with a side of home-style comfort food, but they never quite got the hang of modern operations, sticking to outdated methods that drained the place dry. That's where I stepped in, not out of choice at first, but because I couldn't watch it sink while they fawned over Sheng's half-formed suggestions. Every month, without fail, I'd wire $500 from my savings account, straight to theirs, covering overdue invoices or emergency repairs, like a leaky roof during rainy season. On top of that, I'd spend hours offering free IT advice, since my job as a project manager in tech gave me the skills to help. I'd optimize their online ordering system through apps like Square or DoorDash integrations, cutting down on manual errors and boosting delivery efficiency. I'd negotiate better rates with digital vendors for ingredients, using tools to track inventory in real time so they wouldn't overstock perishables. Late evenings in my downtown apartment, I'd hunch over my laptop reviewing their spreadsheets, spotting discrepancies that could have led to thousands in losses if ignored. Did they ever acknowledge it? Rarely. Instead, they'd call Sheng to rave about how her marketing brainwaves were the real saviors, things like suggesting a new flyer design or a vague social media promo that never fully launched. My contributions got a curt nod at best, then brushed aside. Once I spent weeks untangling a payroll software glitch that was messing up employee taxes, potentially triggering an IRS notice. I presented the fix over a quick video call, outlining how it would save them hours weekly. Mom listened for a minute before saying, "Okay, that's handled. Oh, Sheng's got this great idea for a loyalty program next month." Dad grunted in agreement, already texting Sheng to discuss her vision, while I sat there with my notes feeling like an unpaid consultant they'd dialed by accident. It wasn't isolated. I'd recommend switching to cloud-based accounting to automate reports, but they'd dismiss it until Sheng casually mentioned something similar months later during one of her visits to the diner. Suddenly, it was groundbreaking, and they'd credit her for the shift, even though my initial setup had laid the groundwork. Sheng played into it, accepting the compliments with that same pitying glance toward me, as if my efforts were quaint but unnecessary next to her flair. At a staff meeting I attended remotely, she once quipped that I was good with the tech stuff, like it was a hobby, while Mom laughed and Dad steered the talk back to her promotional plans. I gritted my teeth through it, all thinking about the trips I skipped, or the nicer furniture I couldn't afford because that $500 went out like clockwork. Why did I keep at it? A mix of duty and that lingering hope they'd finally see my value, the reliable one holding things together behind the scenes. I'd stay up past midnight tweaking their website to improve user experience, adding features like online reservations that increased bookings by noticeable margins. Meanwhile, they'd be at Sheng's place in the suburbs gushing over her latest pitch for a menu rebrand that amounted to little more than swapping font colors. The money and time added up, chipping away at my own stability, but family ties pulled me back each time. Still, with every transfer and ignored email update, the resentment simmered, a quiet undercurrent to the favoritism I'd known since childhood. Sheng's role in it stung too. She'd toss off comments like, "Stick to your computers," during group chats, reinforcing that I was the utility player, not the star. Looking back, it was clear they relied on me for survival, not affection, taking my skills as a given, while elevating her every whim. That evening, at the family dinner in our Los Angeles backyard, the warm summer air hummed with conversation and the sizzle of burgers on the grill as 20 relatives milled around picnic tables draped in checkered cloths. String lights twinkled overhead, casting a soft glow on faces I'd known all my life, cousins trading jokes, aunts passing plates of potato salad, uncles nursing beers. But as always, the focus gravitated to Sheng perched at the head of the main table, her posture confident like she owned the space. A cousin leaned in, grinning wide. "Sheng, I heard you're crushing it in marketing now, district coordinator already." She nodded, her smile practiced and bright, absorbing the admiration like sunlight. Another relative piped up, "Your campaigns for that chain are killer. You've got real talent for drawing crowds." I shifted on my bench, twirling a fork through my coleslaw, accustomed to this ritual, where Sheng's accomplishments took center stage. Mom beamed from across the table, her voice carrying over the chatter. "She's always had that business instinct," Dad agreed, puffing out his chest as if Sheng were their crowning glory. The praise rolled on her recent ad push, her knack for customer engagement, her innovative tweaks to social media strategies. No one brought up my role, not even in passing, despite my years stabilizing companies through IT overhauls. I'd managed projects that turned failing tech setups around, saving firms from downtime disasters, but here amid the family I faded into the background once more. Still, I figured tonight might be different. Maybe I could slip in something useful about the diner. I waited for a lull, then cleared my throat, keeping my voice even. "I've been digging into the diner's ops data lately. You're hemorrhaging on excess stock. If we tweak the inventory app and drop a couple unreliable suppliers, it could shave thousands off annual costs." I leaned forward, ready to break down the plan I'd mapped out over weeks, a streamlined system with automated alerts for low stock and better vendor deals through bulk negotiation platforms. The table hushed, but not in interest. Sheng arched an eyebrow, her lips curving into that familiar smirk. "Inventory apps, that's quaint?" She drawled, her tone laced with sarcasm. "Leave the real strategies to me. I've got concepts that actually move the needle." A few cousins snickered, the sound twisting in my gut like a bad bite. Mom cut in sharp and dismissive. "Honey, we're not here to crunch numbers. Let's keep it light." Sheng's lining up a fresh promo for fall. Dad didn't meet my eyes, just took a swig of his drink, murmuring, "Yeah?" Sheng's on top of it. My cheeks burned, hands clenching the edge of the tablecloth, the weeks of analysis dismissed like a child's doodle. I pressed on, forcing composure. "It's more than data. I could renegotiate those online vendor contracts, lock in discounts that make a tangible impact." Sheng burst out laughing this time, a cutting bark that echoed off the fence. "Vendors, come on. I've handled that ages ago. Maybe stick to your office gig." The murmurs swelled, some amused, others shifting uncomfortably, as the table dynamic tilted further against me. Mom waved dismissively, "Enough of that, Sheng. Fill us in on your new video campaign idea." Dad nodded, pivoting to her as if my words had evaporated. I leaned back, throat tight, the old ache of erasure settling heavy in my chest. Then it escalated. Dad stood, glass raised for a toast, his gaze sweeping the group, lingering on Sheng before settling on me. "To family bonds and our true pride," he began, his voice steady and pointed. But Mom interrupted, surging to her feet, her face flushed. "We gave birth to you out of duty," she bellowed, her glare boring into me like I'd failed some unspoken test. "You were born to fulfill your duty. We never needed you." The declaration sucked the oxygen from the yard, utensils clattering to a stop, a cousin gasping softly. Sheng didn't blink, her smirk, sharpening eyes challenging me to crack. Mom stood there, unapologetic, sipping her drink as if she'd stated a fact, while Dad remained silent, his expression neutral but complicit. The weight pressed down, every eye on me, anticipating a meltdown or plea. I refused to deliver. Heart hammering, I kept my expression neutral, jaw firm, though inside the accumulated slights crashed like waves. Years of being diminished, of funneling resources into their diner only to be nullified publicly, it crystallized. Sheng's taunting grin sealed it, a wordless dare that I'd forever be the outsider. I eased my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the patio stones. "Great, it's not too late," I said, my voice low and steady, flashing a tight smile that masked the fury. I scooped up my purse, turned on my heel, and walked out the gate, clicking shut behind me, heels echoing on the sidewalk as the cool LA breeze hit my face, fueling the storm brewing within. The next morning, I sat in my downtown LA apartment, the echo of Mom's shout still ringing in my ears like a bad hangover. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across my coffee table where my phone lay silent for now. Last night's rage had cooled into something sharper, a clear resolve that I was finished being their invisible crutch. No more $500 vanishing from my account each month, no more late-night tweaks to their diner's tech setup. I'd given enough and gotten nothing but dismissal in return. It was time to pull the plug. I picked up my phone, fingers steady, as I opened our family group chat, me, Dad, Mom, and Sheng, and typed out the message I'd rehearsed in my head during the drive home. "I'm done supporting the diner, no more transfers, no more IT fixes, good luck, T." I hit send, watching the delivery notification pop up, my pulse quickening at the finality of it. This wasn't a bluff. It was the end of the line. Minutes ticked by, then my screen exploded with activity. Dad called first, the ringtone jarring in the quiet space. I let it go to voicemail, not ready to hear his voice yet. When I checked later, his message started confused, then turned edged. "What's going on with this? We need to discuss it now, you're acting rash." Mom followed with a text chain rapid fire and laced with accusation. "How can you do this? The diner's our family anchor, call me immediately." Sheng kept it brief, a single word flashing up. Seriously, the calls kept coming. Dad leaving 2 more voicemails, his tone shifting to outright frustration, as if I owed him explanations after years of their indifference. "This isn't like you were counting on that help," he said in one, his words dripping with entitlement. Mom escalated to emails, long paragraphs about legacy and responsibility, how abandoning them now would shatter everything they'd built. She painted the diner as some sacred tie, invoking memories of holidays spent there as kids, but conveniently skipping how they'd always spotlighted Sheng while I mopped up the messes. Sheng rang once, her voice sharp in the voicemail, demanding I snap out of it and stop the drama. I didn't pick up, didn't reply. Their desperation seeped through every notification, but instead of guilt, I felt a strange release, like shedding a heavy coat I'd worn too long. I knew the diner would feel the hit fast without my monthly infusion. Those bills wouldn't pay themselves, and suppliers I'd negotiated with would pull back once payments lagged. My IT overhauls had been the glue holding their online presence together, from menu updates to payment processing. Now they'd scramble, and I wasn't lifting a finger. But Sheng wasn't content to let it simmer privately. 2 days in, I got an alert, a new post on her Instagram visible to our extended family and her network of friends. "Some folks act like they're irreplaceable, but it's just envy talking, creating chaos to steal the spotlight." She wrote no names, but the subtext screamed my direction. Comments trickled in, relatives speculating, a few tagging me directly with questions. She doubled down with another update hinting at my unstable career choices and failed dates, claiming I prioritized work over relationships, all fabrications twisted to make me the villain. My jaw tightened as I scrolled the notifications, buzzing like angry bees, each one chipping at my reputation. Sheng was deflecting, turning the narrative to paint me as petty, while shielding the diner's woes and their favoritism. I could have clapped back, exposed the transfers, the ignored advice, the years of propping them up, but that would drag me into her arena. Instead, I blocked her profile, muted the family chat, and deleted the piling emails without a glance. Their pleas were their burden, now not mine. For the first time in ages, I breathed easier, no longer tethered to their expectations. The silence I enforced felt like reclaiming control, a small win amid the storm they'd brewed. A few days later, I flew to Seattle to visit Grandpa Roosevelt in his quiet waterfront home overlooking the Puget Sound. The decision wasn't spur of the moment. I'd spent the interim ignoring the escalating barrage from home, Dad's persistent voicemails now bordering on demands, Mom's emails ramping up the guilt with tales of the diner's impending doom, and Sheng's Instagram posts growing bolder with veiled digs about ungrateful siblings, and my supposed career flops that drew more family comments, some even direct messages probing if I was all right, or hinting I'd caused the rift. Their pressure only solidified my stance. I needed an ally who saw through the facade, and Grandpa, with his sharp eye for fairness, fit that bill perfectly. The flight gave me time to organize my thoughts, rehearsing the details I'd lay out. Landing in the drizzly Seattle weather, I rented a car and drove straight to his place, arriving as he waited on the porch. His frame sturdy from years in construction, his expression warm but sensing the storm I carried. We hugged and settled into his cozy living room, the tick of an old clock marking the silence before I unleashed it all. Starting with the backyard dinner, I described Mom's shout word for word, how she'd declared I was born out of duty, never needed her glare cutting deep amid the relatives. I outlined the lifelong favoritism my ideas dismissed. Sheng's vague notions exalted all while I propped up the diner unseen. I detailed the monthly $500 the IT revamps, like integrating point-of-sale systems that streamlined orders and reduced waste, only for them to credit Sheng's superficial tweaks. The late nights fixing glitches, negotiating with app providers, keeping their online reviews from tanking, it poured out along with the sting of their anniversary-like dismissals. Then I showed him Sheng's posts, screenshots I'd captured before blocking her. The jabs about jealousy, the lies twisting my relationships and work ethic into failures, comments from cousins buying her spin. Grandpa's face tightened with each reveal, his rough hands balling into fists, especially at Mom's words and Dad's silence. They said that outright in front of kin. He growled, his voice low and gravelly. I nodded, handing over my phone for him to scroll the evidence, his jaw clenching harder at the betrayal unfolding. He paced the room, anger radiating like heat from a forge. Grandpa had amassed a modest portfolio over decades, rental properties in Seattle, a bit of land upstate. Nothing flashy, but enough to divide fairly among his kids, including Dad, with shares for me and Sheng. But now he shook his head firmly. I've watched this play out too long, thought they'd wise up, but this crosses every line. He sat back down, his resolve ironclad. The will's changing, they get nothing. I didn't argue, didn't need to. He was already dialing his lawyer, a no-nonsense type who showed up within the hour, briefcase in hand. I stayed quiet as they hashed it out, Grandpa dictating the revisions Dad, Mom, and Sheng cut, entirely the assets rerouted to me with a chunk to his favored local veterans charity. You've earned this not just for the help, but for enduring their nonsense, he told me, his tone softening but unyielding. As I flew back to LA the next day, my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Jared Evans. He'd seen Sheng's posts circulating in family circles and reached out privately. This ain't right, I've got your bank transfer proofs from years back, he wrote, attaching screenshots of the wires I'd sent monthly along with emails detailing my IT fixes. Without prompting, he shared them in a family group chat, countering Sheng's narrative with hard evidence. Shelanda's been the backbone keeping that diner afloat, not these so-called ideas. Comments flipped quickly, relatives calling out the lies, and aunt posting, "She carried you all this time." Sheng tried damage control, deleting posts, but the tide had turned, whispers of her exaggerations spreading beyond family to her professional network. I didn't engage, just watched from afar, the unraveling I'd set in motion, feeling the weight lift further. Over the next months, their world started to crumble in Los Angeles. Without my monthly $500, the diner's bills stacked up like unpaid tab. Suppliers I'd once smoothed relations with started demanding cash up front or cutting ties altogether, leaving shelves bare and customers turning away. The IRS audit hit like a freight train, penalties racking up for sloppy records I'd warned them about years earlier, fines in the tens of thousands they couldn't scrape together. Dad tried charming the agents over the phone, but his usual bluster fell flat against federal paperwork. Mom scrambled to offload inventory at fire sale prices, but it was futile. The bank initiated foreclosure on the property, forcing them to shutter the doors for good. I learned the details secondhand from a neutral cousin, not from them directly, and I didn't reach out to confirm or console their choices had led here. They lost the house too, that 3-bedroom in the suburbs where we'd grown up, buried under a second mortgage they'd taken to maintain appearances, relying on my infusions to bridge the gaps. Payments lapsed fast without income flowing in the bank, seized it all their belongings, crammed into a storage unit, while they downsized to a cramped 1-bedroom apartment in a rundown complex on the city's edge. Relatives who'd once nodded along at gatherings now distanced themselves. The truth about my support spreading like wildfire through Jared's shares and family chats. An uncle confronted Dad at a distant relative's event saying, "You drove her off. And, for what?" Mom tried spinning it as my abandonment, but the evidence, those transfer proofs and emails, undermined her every time. Invitations dried up, their phones going quiet. Sheng's fallout cut deeper. Her grand pitches to investors about expanding the diner into a mini chain evaporated. Once the core business folded, they backed out, wary of tying funds to a proven failure. Her reputation took the biggest blow as Jared's counters went viral in our circles, relatives digging deeper, uncovering how her innovative ideas had never materialized, while my fixes had kept things afloat. Comments turned vicious. "You smeared her to cover your tracks." One aunt posted, Sheng scrambled to scrub her Instagram, but screenshots circulated anyway. Colleagues at her marketing firm caught wind, whispering about her inflated claims, leading to passed-over promotions, and eventually a layoff notice framed as restructuring but timed suspiciously. She bounced to temp gigs in retail, her interviews flopping as references soured, no one buying her excuses anymore. Meanwhile, I channeled my energy elsewhere, meeting up with my friend Lakita at a cozy coffee spot near my apartment, the aroma of fresh brews grounding our talks. I spilled the saga, the dinner, the cut-off Sheng's posts, Grandpa's will shift, and she listened, eyes steady, stirring her latte without interruption. "You've held them up forever. It's your turn to stand tall," she said, her words simple yet anchoring, reminding me I wasn't isolated in this. Lakita had her own hustle in graphic design, navigating client dramas, but she always carved time for these check-ins. No strings attached, just solid backing that felt like a lifeline. Then there was Devin, the software engineer I'd met at a tech mixer in downtown LA, our connection sparking over shared gripes about buggy code. He was steady with a quiet wit that disarmed me on our first date at a jazz lounge, where he confessed he'd only attended the event to dodge another evening debugging scripts. By our fourth outing, we were hiking trails in the Hollywood Hills, discussing everything from algorithm tweaks to my aspirations for leading bigger IT projects. I opened up gradually about the family mess, the shout, the severance, and he held space, his hand on mine, saying, "That took real strength. They never deserved you." His belief hit different, untainted by obligation, a genuine lift I'd missed from home. With Lakita and Devin, my days filled with purpose. I landed a major client, a fintech startup, trusting my overhaul of their data systems, saving them from expansion pitfalls. The freedom tasted sweet, no longer weighed by their chaos. While their lives unraveled, mine began to thrive in downtown LA. I threw myself into my IT role with renewed focus, managing projects that demanded precision and delivered results. The fintech startup I'd onboarded became my breakout win. After months of grinding through data migrations and system audits, I sealed a multi-million-dollar extension optimizing their cloud infrastructure to handle scaling without crashes. My boss pulled me into her office one afternoon, her feedback direct: "This is senior-level work. You're getting the promotion and the bump in pay." It wasn't just the title or the extra in my check. It validated that my skills stood on their own, no family approval required. Outside the office, I cultivated what felt like a real foundation. Lakita remained my anchor. We'd grab lattes at that same corner cafe, splitting muffins while she unpacked her latest design client woes or hyped my career moves. Her support was effortless, no expectations, just showing up with texts checking in or plans for low-key movie nights. Then Devon deepened into something solid, our hikes turning into weekend getaways, where we'd talk shop, him troubleshooting engineering puzzles, me venting about code bottlenecks before shifting to bigger dreams like me launching an independent consulting side gig. He knew the full backstory, now the dinner debacle, the severance, the will rewrite, and he didn't minimize it. They lost out on someone incredible, he'd say over dinner at a quiet spot in Little Tokyo, his quiet assurance building me up without fanfare. Grandpa Roosevelt stayed connected too, sending handwritten notes from Seattle Pride evident in his steady script confirming the will's finality and sharing updates on his rentals. "It's yours now, build with it." One read a quiet nod to fairness I'd rarely known. I didn't gloat over the family slide. It came through fragments from distant relatives, not direct pleas anymore. Dad picked up warehouse shifts, loading trucks in the early hours, his charm, no match for the grind. Mom turned to online marketplaces, hawking handmade crafts from their tiny apartment, her posts on neighborhood groups desperate for buyers. Shung flitted between entry-level retail spots, her marketing resume tainted by the exposed lies, interviews drying up as word spread through shared contacts. They tried bridging the gap once or twice, Mom slipping a text through a new number laced with remorse claims. "We're struggling. Can we talk?" Dad left a voicemail softer but still entitled, "Family sticks together. Let's fix this." Sheng even emailed all caps demanding reconciliation, but I deleted without reply, blocking the accounts as they surfaced. Grandpa shut down their overtures too, refusing Mom's call with a curt, "You reap what you sow," before hanging and ignoring Sheng's texts entirely. Dad never reached out to him, pride or shame holding him back. I stayed detached, no lingering ties, their downfall a consequence of choices not my doing. The shift taught me hard truths I'd overlooked for too long. Value those who see you fully, not the ones who drain you chasing validation that never arrives. I'd wasted years funneling effort into a void, thinking more giving would earn my place, but it only enabled their bias. Now, with Lakita's reliability, Devon's partnership, and Grandpa's equity, I invested in what nourished back. Life wasn't flawless, demanding deadlines, self-doubt creeps, but recalling Mom's shout, Sheng's smirk. Dad's silence grounded me. I wasn't the antagonist in their narrative, I was the one who'd chosen freedom. My apartment buzzed with new energy, Devon's laughter mixing with Lakita's playlists. My career a platform for growth, not proof. Thanks for sticking with my story. What would you do in my shoes? Drop it in the comments and subscribe for more.